Tell you I was going to Puerto Rico for this Christmas.
No, that should be really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been learning a lot about Puerto Rico and the origin. It's very interesting.
Oh, since you've been learning about its origin, do you know how it was formed or whatever?
Yeah, the formation of Puerto Rico is very similar to the rest of the Caribbean islands. 185 million years ago, there were large shifts in the tectonic plates which shifted upwards and downwards. So pretty much Puerto Rico sits on top of a huge mountain range. So when you compare Puerto Rico is 713 times smaller than the total area of the United States. But when you compare it to Connecticut, it's only about 200 square miles smaller.
Oh, that's interesting. You know when Puerto Rico was discovered?
Yeah, in 1493, during Columbus' second voyage to the America, that's when Puerto Rico was discovered. There he crossed paths with the Taino people, where those people were very prominent throughout the entire Caribbean. These people were very peaceful, very well organized, very well advanced. They were in comparison to Europeans, their advancement was pretty big. They had medicine and different types of weapons, such as pepper gas and stuff like that.
Wow. So speaking of the Taino people, was their demise similar to the Incas?
Actually, it very was. As you know, there's conflict between anytime there's natives and Europeans. So eventually, they ended up fighting back against the Europeans. So a lot of them fought back. Some fled. Some died from diseases that they weren't immune to, such as smallpox and measles. And then some eventually decided to choose suicide over bondage.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's interesting that you got to learn about the origin. Actually, there's one semester that I got to learn a bit about Puerto Rican government.
Oh, wow. What kind of government does Puerto Rico have?
Puerto Rico is a republic, which means it has a chief of state. Now, a chief of state is essentially a leader of the nation that is not a king. And what that implies is that leader has some checks and balances to his power.
Wow. Does Puerto Rico have their own branches of government?
Yeah, very similar to the United States. Since it is a territory of the United States, Puerto Rico has an executive branch, which is led by the governor of Puerto Rico. Presently, his name is Ricardo Navarez. And then it has a legislative branch consisting of the House of Chambers and the Senate. Now, the House of Chambers has 51 members, and then the Senate has 27. Puerto Rico also has a judicial branch consisting of 7 Supreme Justices, just like the United States.
Well, do you know any of the local forms of government?
Yeah, throughout Puerto Rico, it has 78 municipalities, which are all individually headed by a mayor who runs things locally.
Wow. So being a U.S. territory, what control does the U.S. have over Puerto Rico?
It actually has a lot of control over Puerto Rico, meaning that it has control over a lot of transportation over air, sea, land. It has control over immigration, has control over social security. The United States also has control over whether or not Puerto Rico will become a state or not, which is up to the U.S. Congress.
Wow, very interesting. So Jody, I heard you went to Puerto Rico and learned a lot about the sports.
I did.
So how did sports in Puerto Rico start?
So it started by the Taino Indians, which is Puerto Rico's indigenous people. The first games they ever started at Puerto Rico consist of they were trying to test out their physical strength. They did races, and then they also had fishing competitions.
Wow. So speaking of sports, what are some of the common sports that they have?
All right, so there's one that goes way back. It's called bate, and this consists of you keeping a ball in constant motion, you only using your head, shoulders, elbows, and your knees. It's usually played in a U-shaped stadium. And then second is boxing. That's pretty big. So it's actually how they called it, they described it. It's called Clydesdale Manor, and so the sugar cane and coffee workers, they worked on plantations, and then they would box each other to see who the best employer was.
Well, actually, here in the States, I was watching some sports and I heard a couple of the anchors talking about this athlete called Roberto Clemente. Do you know anything about him?
Yeah, I know a lot about him actually. So he was a pro baseball player. He played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He kind of had a rough upbringing. He started playing right out of college, but sadly he died in a plane crash. He was trying to transport supplies over to the survivors that got affected by the hurricane.
Wow,
So sad.
that's very tragic.
One thing that I personally find also kind of tragic is some of the chicken fighting that goes down in Puerto Rico. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's kind of weird if we saw that around here, but yeah, it's mostly just a money thing. So a lot of people just pay to watch it. So it's-
Speaking of chicken, Andrea, I've heard you went to Puerto Rico and you like the food.
Yeah, the food was amazing. So like they get most of their influence from West Africa, the Spanish, obviously, the Taino people, and a little bit of like American. They have this seasoning called el sofrito, which is like a mix of like papaya, cacao, nespero, plantains, and yampi. And like the Taino people use like this thing called a pilon to mash all those ingredients together. And then they also had this type of cooking called cocina criolla, which is like Creole cooking basically. And originally it was the Taino people, and their diet consisted of like seafood, tropical fruit, and corn. But then when Ponce de Leon arrived in 1493, the Spanish obviously brought like beef, pork, and rice to their diet.
Well, I'm sure that all of us have had meals where some of the ingredients have come from Puerto Rico. Do you happen to know like what their most valuable crop is?
Yeah, so right now their most valuable crop is coffee, but when Ponce de Leon arrived, it was sugarcane. And they also have other crops like plantains, pineapples, corn, and rice, and obviously like other vegetables.
Well, I love Puerto Rican food. What are some of the national dishes?
Well, when I was there, I had arroz con dulce, which is a sweet sticky rice for breakfast, and it's kind of weird because you wouldn't think rice would be a breakfast food up here. For lunch, every day I had this soup called asopao, which was like rice, seafood, chorizo, and chicken and other ingredients, and it was amazing. For like dinner, I had mofongo, which is like an African Puerto Rican inspired dish, which is like fried plantains mashed up all together with fried pork also. And sometimes for dinner I had pasteles, which were dough made out of plantains filled with like other meat and vegetables. But also for dessert we had those too because they'll be filled with custard. But the one thing you need to try is the blanc, which is like their staple dessert down there. It's like this hard custard type of dish, and it's made with like eggs, milk, and vanilla. And while you're down there, you should try the pina colada. While in the U.S., we put alcohol in it. In Puerto Rico, they just use evaporated milk and like mango or pineapple juice.
Wow, I'm definitely gonna try that. Thanks, guys, for telling me a bunch of information about Puerto Rico. I can't wait to go.